Call to order this hearing of the Minnesota Senate Taxes Committee, Thursday, March 27th. It is 9:03. Quorum is present. First item on the agenda is the minutes from Wednesday, March 26th, 9 a.m. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are adopted as presented. We'll start with Senate File 2115. Senator Clark. Is he not here? Is Senator Jasinski here? Is anybody here that wants to have their bills heard? Hey, this is going to be a short hearing. Senator Hauschild will, Senator Clark, please. Welcome to the committee. Senator Clark brings us Senate File 2115. Senator Hauschild on the author's behalf. Authors, where is it? Oh, it's not in here. Offers the A1 amendment, A3 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Clark, Senate File 2115 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing Senate File 2115, which modifies the existing historic tax credit. Thank you for adopting the author's amendment. Quick review of Senate File 2115. It changes two pieces. So Section 1, applications and allocations. It increases the length of time by which a project that qualifies for historic structure rehabilitation credit or grant must be placed in service from 3 to 6 years. And it is effective retroactively for projects for which an allocation certificate was issued after June 30th, 2021, and that's what the author's amendment in part had. And Section 2, credit certificates and grants. This allows an assignee to assign the credit in whole to a second assignee before the first assignee's payment is claimed. This requires the recipient of the original credit certificate and each assignee to file a return for the taxable year the project is placed in service. So as many of you know, Madam Chair and committee, the district I represent is where the city of Minneapolis was founded. The ruins of the flour mills, which were central to the creation of Minneapolis as a city, some of which have been converted into housing and other uses using the historic tax credit, continue to be prominent features. Thus, the historic tax credit is important to my city and my district, and as many of you know, it is important to my predecessor, Senator Carrie Dietzick, who championed the historic tax credit here in the Senate. This bill makes two changes, as I mentioned. It changes the deadline from 3 to 6 years, and as my testifier will explain, this 3-year deadline is increasingly causing issues. Additionally, Madam Chair, it is my understanding that the State Historic Preservation Office is in support of making this change. And the second piece is that it allows the credit to be transferred one more time or twice. This change will make the credit more attractive to the investment community and thus hopefully more valuable as more investors will seek to purchase the tax credit. And finally, as you know, the historic tax credit is one of the few tax credits that is reviewed every year for efficiency by the University of Minnesota. The University of Minnesota recently published their annual analysis, which I have included for your interest. With me today, Madam Chair, is John Green, an architect who specializes in historic projects.
We invite Mr. Green to come to the witness table. Are there any questions or comments for Senator Clark to begin with? Senator Jasinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Clark. I'm just curious, and I don't know who this question is for, but we have fraud in other parts of our government where assignment of a tax credit has resulted in fraud, and actually we correct that in some earlier work of this committee. Do we know of any fraud that's happened in this program, and is this, and I'm trying to better understand the assignment part of this, Senator Clark, but do we know if there's any vulnerability to fraud with this program? I think we need to be very careful about that since we've had that problem in the past.
Senator Clark?
Madam Chair and Senator Jasinski, I am unaware of any, and this is intended to make it easier for our investment partners to really make this more attractive, so to allow them to really put it to use. So that's the emphasis of this. I think it's sort of an anti-fraud piece to allow it to be put into use more quickly.
Senator Jasinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the committee to chew on, and as we dig into this bill, but I think it's important if we learned in the past about what not to do, and we're actually, and this is another area in law that we already have an assignment. This is a good time to study and think about that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Jasinski. He's referring to the a bill that we have not only heard, but that we have heard from, it's also in the governor's tax bill, the assignability of the K-12 credit, where we found that the folks who were claiming it assigned it to a third party who defrauded them. And so we do not allow assignability of the, or we will not. The proposal is not to allow assignability of the E-12 credit. I mean, it's still a good question, and I hope that we take that seriously with regard to this credit, although in the claiming of the credit to start with, I don't believe there's ever been, to my knowledge, fraud connected with it to start with. So but good question, good point, and we need to be aware of it. Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief question, and it may come out in the testimony, I'm not sure, but Senator Clark, the two things I was just would like to know before the end of the hearing here, your hearing, is one, how does this, the federal government has a companion historic rehabilitation, historic tax credit, and I'm just wondering how does your bill either stay aligned with that, and if it doesn't, how might that affect projects in any way? I've been a longtime supporter of the historic tax credit, so I just want to know its interaction with the federal tax credit, and also with the. I was thinking about the years, the 3 years, maybe longer period, that, and also having a second assignee. We did work very hard to get that assignability piece. That was good, but I want to make sure, just to understand how that second assignee piece corresponds with the feds and what may, or how that may impact the success of the program. Thank you.
Senator Clark?
Madam Chair, Senator Nelson, I will have a phone a friend option here as well. Mr. Bagnoli here will be able to answer some of those questions if you would like, perhaps after testifier goes.
Thank you, Senator Clark. I understand that actually one of the criteria for the project is that it qualified for the federal credit. So that's at least a first screening for probability of fraud. Anyone else? At some point, Senator Clark, I would like you to consider there are two components here. I don't know which one really drives the revenue estimate. That will be important.
Yes.
So you may have to be deciding what is more important in a fiscal manner, whether it is a extension or the assignability. But right now, we're going to hear from Mr. Green. Welcome to the committee. If you'd identify yourself for the record, we're pleased to have your testimony.
Madam Chair, committee members,
And if you would bring the microphone as close to you, it's a pretty short microphone. Thank you very much.
thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name's John Green. I'm a senior project manager with AWH Architects, and we're located in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. My practice is focused almost exclusively on historic buildings, and our practice focuses on two areas. We do historic consulting and also full architectural services. So I'm really familiar with the importance of the impact of the historic tax credit through the work that we've done. Over the past 10 years, we've done about 19 historic tax credit projects totaling almost $100 million in the state of Minnesota. And I wanted to specifically testify to why the existing 3-year rule is problematic. Recently, I was involved with a historic rehab project in Duluth of the historic Central High School downtown. It's an iconic structure, just a couple blocks up from Superior Street, 160,000 square feet. And it was a project looking to change of use from school to 122 apartments. This type of project presents myriad challenges and unknowns. The process of conforming with the requirements, the Secretary of Interior's requirements for a historic tax credit project, take time and a lot of intention. And projects of this scale are often phased over time, and a very important aspect of that is working with both the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service to satisfy the conditions of approval that will lead to a building successfully being placed in service. The 3-year window presents another large challenge, which is seen as a risk in the process. A project like our project in Duluth, Zenith Apartments, already comes with many, many challenges, the unforeseen conditions in the building, things economically that are happening both locally and nationally, and then other variables on the client side or the design team side. Extending this window would allow for a project team to intentionally work through those challenges that arise to successfully complete a project and breathe new life into a historic structure or property, and place that into service successfully. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there further questions or comments for Mr. Green? Seeing none, Senator Clark, do you have any final comment to bring us this morning?
Madam Chair, committee, we are a state filled with treasured buildings, and this is a bill that will help ensure that those buildings stay treasured and stay beautiful. I encourage you and thank you for the time, and encourage you to find a way to include this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senate File 2115 as amended is laid over. We'll revert now to Senate File 768. Senator Mohamed, if you are here. Senator Klein offers the A1 amendment.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have the A1 amendment. if you want
Yes,
to
just
start
a
with
minute.
that.
He's offering the A1 amendment. Does everybody have it? All in favor of the A1, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails, and the A1 amendment is adopted. We now have Senate File 768 as amended before us. Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy opening day. I know it's the baseball's league opening day here today.
Beg pardon?
Baseball.
Opening day, happy opening day.
Happy opening day.
We were going to mention that at the end, but for all who celebrate, we are in one of the best sports times of the year with the NCAA and the Twins opener in St. Louis. Isn't that right, Ms. Johnston? Yes, yes, it is. She's going to be at one of the games this weekend. Thank you, Senator Mohamed. So if you would start with your bill, explaining it, starting with Section 1, and then we'll have your general comments afterwards.
Okay, we will start with going through the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair. Section 1 of the bill, credit for conversion of underutilized buildings. Subdivision 1, it defines the terms applicable to credit or grant. Subdivision 2, credit or grant allows a credit or grant equal to 30% of the cost of qualifying conversion expenses for qualifying projects. An applicant may claim the credit or grant or combination of credit and grant. The credit is claimed or the grant is paid in the year the qualifying project is placed in service. Subdivision 3 requires an applicant for a qualifying project to apply to the Commissioner of Deed for a credit, grant, or both before the building conversion begins. Sets forth in the information that must be included in the application, establishes the credit conversion administration account in the special revenue fund into which application fees are deposited. The Commissioner of Deed may collect fees of up to 1% of the estimated qualifying conversion expenses to offset administrative costs, and it requires the Commissioner to issue an allocation certificate verifying the eligibility for the credit or grant and notify the applicant of the determination in writing. Subdivision 4, credit certificate grant, it requires the applicant of qualifying project to notify the Commissioner of Deed when the qualifying project is placed in service, after which the Commissioner of Deed must issue a credit certificate or pay a grant to the designed taxpayer. The credit may be designed to another taxpayer, and the taxpayer must notify the Commissioner of Deed within 30 days of the assignment. Subdivision 5 requires the credit to be passed through the owners, members, partners, or stakeholders of an applicable pass-through entity on a pro data basis or as specifically allocated in organizational documents for any other executed agreement as of the last day of the taxpayer. Subdivision 6 provides that the credit is refundable. Subdivision 7 appropriates from the general fund the amount necessary to pay the refunds and grants to the Commissioner of Revenue and the Commissioner of Deed. Subdivision 8 requires the Commissioner of Revenue to prescribe the manner in which the credit is paid and the Commissioner of Deed to prescribe how the grant is paid. Subdivision 9 requires the Commissioner of Deed to issue an annual report to the chairs, ranking members of the Senate and House Tax Committee and prescribe the content of the report. Subdivision 10 requires the credit to expire after fiscal year 2031. Of Deed has authority to credit certificates through 2035 that are based on an allocation, certificates that were issued before the fiscal year 2032. Section 2 of the bill allows the credit to be claimed against the insurance premiums tax credit. The credit is refundable, effective for taxable years beginning after December 31st, 2025. And Section 3 of the bill requires that the Commissioner of Deed to hold a public hearing for stakeholders' feedback after completion of the development of the conversion program application information and forms required to claim the credit. It also requires the Commissioner of Deed to publicize sufficient materials for self-education, promotion of the program by stakeholders effective the day following final enactment. I can go through my remarks now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mohamed. You may begin your overall presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for considering Senate File 0768, a bill that addresses property taxes, housing, and job creation. The Catalyzing Underutilized Buildings CUP credit is a proposed new tool for the state to have in its toolbox in addressing the revitalization of cities of all sizes across the state of Minnesota. The CUP credit is not a silver bullet that will fix all of our city's challenges. However, without it, many adaptive reuse projects in Minnesota simply will not move forward. We are living in a post-COVID world, and the needs of our commercial buildings have dramatically shifted. The market for office spaces and retail has changed, with fewer people working in offices 5 days a week and less foot traffic in stores compared to pre-pandemic times. This is a reality we must face. Minnesota has a housing shortage. We are 100,000 units behind demand. Simultaneously, we have hundreds of vacant and underutilized buildings from downtown Minneapolis to the suburbs and main streets in greater Minnesota. Adapting existing buildings for new uses, especially converting office spaces into homes, comes with a significant cost. In new multifamily construction, 70% of the cost goes toward materials and 30% to labor. However, in adaptive reuse projects, 70% of the cost is labor and 30% is material. This bill responds directly to the current market realities. Commercial properties are now selling at levels not seen since the Great Recession. For example, the former Ameriprise headquarters building in Minneapolis, built in 2000, sold for $6.25 million in January this year, a stark contrast to its 2016 sale of $200 million. The commercial property market's downturn is having a ripple effect, shifting the property tax burden onto homeowners and renters. This is not sustainable, especially as the state has invested billions to make housing more affordable. The adaptive reuse projects you'll hear today from our testifiers show how a single project can increase a building's assessed value by 6 times the original value. I became a homeowner for the first time last summer, and I certainly feel the pain of significant property increase. I understand that local governments are facing tough decisions, but as state lawmakers, we must look at tools to help alleviate the burdens on residents. The CUP credit is not without a cost. It will require significant state investment. However, it's important to remember that similar investments, such as the state historic tax credit created during the Great Recession in 2010, have paid dividends. For every $1 invested in historic tax credit projects, there's a return of $9 to state and local governments. In challenging budget times, we must prioritize tools that generate strong return on investment. The CUP credit will help stabilize public budgets by generating much-needed revenue. It will also create jobs, particularly for laborers, and produce hundreds of new housing units. Moreover, it will help revitalize our downtowns and main streets across Minnesota, contributing to a vibrant community and a stronger property tax base. We all have buildings in our districts that could be repurposed and revitalized, contributing to housing and economic growth. I urge all of us as policymakers to invest in the CUB credit, an investment that will produce jobs, revenue, and housing for Minnesotans during these uncertain times. And I would be remiss if I didn't say Senator Matt Klein had carried this bill in the past, and I'm grateful to him for handing it over to me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator Mohamed, are there questions for Senator Mohamed before the testimony? Senator Weber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In reading through the revenue estimate, they relied a lot on the information out of South Carolina, who has a similar credit. And I also noted, Madam Chair and Senator Mohamed, that there is a limitation on the credit in South Carolina, and I don't believe there is a limitation in your bill. In light of the state's own budget problems coming up, have you thought about what a reasonable limitation might be on such a credit? And if you haven't, maybe the testifiers, Madam Chair, could comment if they have any knowledge of that particular situation while they give their presentations.
Senator Mohamed?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Weber. I'll have my testifiers add to this, but I would say, of course, we are in uncertain times when it comes to the budget, and we're thinking about what a reasonable budget would look like, and would be working with the chair of the committee to hopefully help us understand how we can figure out what that number would look like. But as it is, I think right now we don't have a specific number, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Senator Weber, there are any number of places in this proposal that are scalable, and we will certainly consider that. At this point, Senator Mohamed, your proposal is too expensive for us, but we can certainly take a serious look at the policy involved and act accordingly. So your first testifier, or the first testifier, is Mr. Berg. And I would point out to members that there are any number of statements from supporters in your packets. And one of them is from Rethos. So welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Chair Rest and members of the committee. My name is Erin Hannafenberg. I am the Deputy Director at Rethos, and we are a
I'm sorry,
501c3 nonprofit organization
I
with
was
the
looking at
mission.
Mr. Sherman and with reading your name, so sorry.
That's okay. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that leads people to connect to their shared places and spaces through preservation, adaptation, and activation. And we have been leading a coalition effort in support of this catalyzing underutilized buildings credit, or the CUB credit. First, I want to thank you very much for, as you've heard today, the value of the historic tax credit, which you reinstated and extended during last session. That program continues to be one of the most cost-effective tools for economic development in the state, as the studies have shown. For every dollar that the state invests, we see 9 to 10 and even more dollars, depending on the location, in economic activity that comes from that credit. And before a project is even completed, the sales, property, and income taxes collected from it return up to 43% of the value of the credit amount to the state. FY 2024 was the first year that the historic tax credit was available again after a one-year lapse, and 9 projects were approved. This is fewer than in most years. That reflects, I think, the difficulty of getting projects financed in today's interest rate environment, even as more and more buildings are becoming vacant. The historic tax credit is a powerful tool, but it's limited by design. It's reserved for buildings that are listed in the National Register of Historic Places, which generally means that structures must be 50 years old or older and deemed historically significant. Many other vacant and underutilized buildings just don't meet that threshold, whether due to age, prior modifications, or a lack of historic association. That's why we've been proposing the CUB credit. Communities need a new incentive to bring buildings back to life. The alternative is more vacancy, disinvestment, and needless demolition at a time when every community in Minnesota needs more housing, and attracting commercial reinvestment is critical to stabilizing our property tax base. We know that this kind of incentive works because we've seen the results firsthand with the historic tax credit. With the CUB credit, we can support the reuse of shuttered properties in towns and cities of all sizes. This is an opportunity to unlock reinvestment in places that are currently sitting idle, an opportunity to build out, not tear down. I urge your support of the CUB credit, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Sherman.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Rest and members of the committee. My name is Chris Sherman, and I'm president of the Sherman Associates. For 47 years, our company has developed, owned, and operated high-quality, long-term real estate in the state of Minnesota. Our primary focus is affordable and workforce housing. Our mission is building communities, enriching neighborhoods, empowering people. Following up on Senator Mohamed and Aaron's previous comments, I do want to start off by just stating how successful the state historic tax credit program has been for 15 years. The economic output has been tremendous. We are one of 38 states that have a state historic tax credit to align with the federal historic tax credit, and it has delivered tremendous leverage of private financing. The tool has worked well. We're, of course, here today to talk about the 30% conversion of underutilized buildings tax credit. This tax credit is truly meant to be a tool of the moment. You flash back 15 years to the state historic tax credit. You flash back 60 years and look at how the downtown transformation really occurred. We have not had a moment like this for quite some time. This 30% CUB tax credit has great similarities to the state historic tax credit, but it also has two primary differences. One being it's a 30% credit versus a 20% credit, and two being it is currently proposed to be eligible for buildings that are 15 years and older. Underutilized and vacant buildings have historically caused further levels of disinvestment, whereas converted buildings have historically caused further levels of investment, not just within the building itself, but in the adjacent properties that surround it. This tool would be a catalyst for converting millions of square feet of vacant space to higher and better uses that will otherwise sit vacant. Our own recent case studies include Landmark Tower in St. Paul and Groove Lofts at North Star Center in Minneapolis. Assessed values of these properties, as Senator Mohamed said earlier, actually are going to be about 10 times higher than they were when we acquired the real estate upon completion. We are delivering 400 homes in the two developments. And overall, the real estate taxes generated, even at the lower tax rate, the housing tax rate, will be 5 times higher than they were when we acquired the building, 5 times what they were. Very importantly, 2/3 of the cost of these projects is invested in labor. We are reusing material. When you compare that to new construction, 2/3 of the cost goes to material. We're investing in labor, we're investing in sustainability, reusing material, but I think very importantly, we're reusing buildings that aren't just built for generations like stick frame housing. We're reusing buildings that are built for centuries to come. So when you talk about long-term investment, long-term transformation, this is a tool that can really be a catalyst for delivering housing well beyond our time. So why is a 30% credit needed versus a 20% credit? That's a significant question. As noted, and as you've seen, housing production across the state of Minnesota has dropped off significantly. Over the last 24 months, building permits are down over 80% across the state of Minnesota. The challenges that have been faced are interest rates doubling over a 24 to 30-month period, costs escalating by about 25%, and the significant focus of this tool is really stabilizing the tax base. We're seeing significant tax base shifts that are now impacting hundreds of thousands of single-family homeowners, and this tool can really be a stabilizer of the tax base, a catalyst for downtowns and converting them to neighborhoods where people are living, working, playing, and staying. You look at the successful areas of the Twin Cities of the state, Duluth, Rochester. They're areas where people are doing all those things. This tool can be a catalyst for the conversion of these areas to neighborhoods. The economic return that we need to consider here is really what occurs if we don't act now. Right now, we're seeing the impact of disinvestment, and that's spurring on across into other areas as assessed values plummet, and the gaps are real that these projects are facing. This tool can truly be a significant catalyst, a tool for the moment, only 6 years of a window, but what this could do for the state of Minnesota, for the counties, for the cities, and the taxpayers it serves is tremendous. Not just in delivering housing, in delivering other outcomes, but in truly stabilizing our tax base for decades to come. As I look at really the question of not acting today, it's a challenging one because these projects are not closing. So we greatly appreciate the consideration of this tool. I think it is one that can certainly be a catalyst for good investment, strong investment that'll serve our state long into the future. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Are there comments or questions of Mr. Sherman? I know in the, one of the observations that you have made, Mr. Sherman, about taking a property that is taxed at the commercial rate down to a lower rate because it's going to be residential property, that that is offset by, well, right now, we understand at least that CI property, the tax capacity of CI property in Minneapolis is not only flatlining, it's going down. Residential property, homesteaders, that value is going up, and more of the burden of the city's levy is falling on homeowners. And that you have made the point that that new rate that would be implied for apartment buildings or condos or whatever it is, it's going to be lower than what the CI property rate is going to be more than overcome by the increase in the value, the actual value of the building that, or the conversion will, that increase in value that will happen there. Do you still make that argument?
Very much so. Thank you for the comment, Chair, and the question. So both of our two case studies of late and the ones that we are looking at presently, the assessed value compared to the acquisition, looking at the acquisition compared to stabilized at full conversion, whether it's housing or a different use, the assessed value is going up by about 10x. I know you mentioned 6x, but in our two case studies, it's up about 10 times what it was previously. So even though the tax rate is being reduced by about 80%, the real estate taxes that these projects are paying are going to be about 6 times higher than they were previously. So yes, the tax rate is going down, but the assessed value is going up anywhere from 6 times to 10 times what it previously was,
Or
delivering.
even 4 times would be fine, all right?
No, it would be. but-
Yes.
And that's why we're in front of you. I mean, this tool can truly be a catalyst in driving our tax base back to stabilization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sherman. Mayor Fry. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Mayor. If you would state your name for the record, we welcome your testimony.
Chair Rest, members of the committee, my name is Jacob Fry. I am the mayor of the city of Minneapolis, and I'm here to testify in favor of Senate File 768. Senator Mohamed, thank you so much for your leadership on the topic. This is a critical bill for the city of Minneapolis, in that this whole concept of remote or distance work was probably inevitable, but it got expedited by 5 to 8 years by COVID-19. And so all of us are having to respond faster to punch through this ring of fire to get to a solution on the other end. Ultimately, what we're seeing in Minneapolis is commercial taxes are dropping by about 9.5% due to a 9.5% reduction in valuation. And when those valuations drop, it's not like we don't still need to collect the necessary tax dollars to provide basic city services. We still get them, but we get them from our residential taxpayers. And those taxpayers are bearing a disproportionate burden, and that burden is only going up. And so to give you an idea of what we are looking to do in Minneapolis is we are going to first focus on some of those older pre-World War II buildings. These are buildings that are more conducive to a shift to residential from commercial. These are buildings where you can open the window, which people generally like in a place where they live. It's a place where the floor plate is more conducive to that shift. And we're looking to do that first in areas like the warehouse district, where you've got a large number of these older buildings. And then those businesses can be transitioned over to the more sleek, taller glass skyscrapers that are not going to ultimately be residential. This, as has been mentioned, is a great way to retain tax base. It's a great way to increase the tax base that we presently have. When you see a number of these buildings dropping in value, it has a massive impact. To give you an idea, just a small collection of these large skyscrapers downtown could generate as much tax revenue as another ward in the city in its entirety. And so when you have a significant drop, it absolutely impacts our tax base. There was a question earlier about what would the cost be. And of course, when you apply a tax credit, it removes taxes that would otherwise be collected. But I would attest that the amount of taxes that both the state and the city collectively will be able to generate will be far, far higher if we make this transition now. The numbers we are seeing speak very clearly for themselves. People want to live downtown. They want to live in the city of Minneapolis, and simultaneously, we're not going to get back up to 100% occupancy for commercial buildings. And so this makes sense on a number of different levels. I greatly appreciate your time. We have a thorough plan that's been sought out now over several years in the city of Minneapolis, and so we're ready to go, and we're ready to partner with you. And I'm so grateful for your work on this bill, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Fry. Are there questions or comments for the mayor? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, and I mean, I certainly understand the need for such a credit. You talked about, moving the commercial tenants out to newer buildings. Is it a requirement in this project that a building be totally vacant, or will there be mixed use allowed within a structure that's rehabbed?
Mayor Fry.
Madam Chair, Senator, I don't believe there's any requirement as to the number of units that stay commercial versus residential, but it allows for a transition ultimately of the space. I imagine that it will be difficult, however, practically to keep some units commercial and others residential in the same building, because if you're undergoing a transition, it makes sense to undergo it for multiple floors. There will be a number of buildings, however, and this is just inevitable, where you'll keep retail at the base. The retail will stay at the base. I mean, Madam Chair, as you're going over to a Twins game and you're heading through the warehouse district, I'm pandering a little bit here, but there are a number of wonderful outlets and restaurants and bars that you'll see there. I imagine that all of them will stay. So you will continue to have some form of commercial or retail use. That is inevitable, but the areas atop, a lot of that can be changed, and people want to live there.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Mayor Fry, is there anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I now invite Ross Peterson and Chad Tepley. Welcome to, is Chad Tepley here?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senators. My name is Roz Peterson, and I represent NAOP, which is a commercial trade association for developers who work in commercial, industrial, multifamily, and other related professions. We have about 600 members. Commercial real estate is a vital contributor to Minnesota's economy, generating $10 billion in the state GDP, $3.1 billion in wages and salaries, and supporting almost 50,000 jobs. However, development is slowed significantly due to rising construction costs, rising interest rates, and the increasing difficulty in making projects financially viable given market risk and fundamental shifts in demand for existing assets. According to research by CredIQ, the Minneapolis-St. Paul Bloomington market has the highest metropolitan commercial real estate distress rate in the country at 49.7% of properties in distress. On behalf of our members, we support Senate File 768, the Cub Credit Catalyst for Underutilized Buildings, as an essential economic development tool for repositioning buildings for adaptive reuse. The office market has been hit especially hard, but it is not the only sector facing challenges, particularly from shifts in work models that have disrupted demand for certain commercial real estate assets and causing much of this distress. And that is why we support adding more tools for our members and all stakeholders to revitalize and otherwise incentivize the reuse of underutilized buildings and return them to productive tax-generating properties. Since the impact of stress in commercial real estate affects everyone, resulting in higher property tax burden being spread out to residents, we are working alongside with stakeholders and the bill authors to ensure the details of the bill language will work to restore and revitalize commercial real estate assets across Minnesota communities. And we appreciate your consideration and thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tepley?
Thank you, Chairman Rust and Committee. My name is Chad Tepley. I am a self-employed local real estate developer and I live in Minneapolis. I have spent 20 years restoring nearly every type of property in neighborhoods throughout the Midwest. Old warehouses to office space, vacant storefronts to community art space, abandoned churches to mixed income housing. Old buildings are the history and the heartbeat of our communities. Unfortunately, restoring these properties is incredibly expensive and challenging, especially when reconfiguring them to different uses. Over the past 5 years, interest rates have more than doubled, and construction costs have risen 30%. So what we're left with is 25% of our spaces around the city sitting vacant. Our neighborhoods and residents are suffering as a result. But the Cub Credit is the solution to breathe new life into our buildings and our neighborhoods. I want to give a quick case study. I just recently finished a 50,000 square foot renovation of 2 old buildings in northeast Minneapolis. They were falling down, they were unsafe, the area was dangerous. We had a coffee shop that had just opened up right when I took over on the buildings. They were coming to me asking me for free rent because they were suffering so badly. The streets were torn up. Within 12 months, I finished the project. I worked with them so they could stay in the building. And their business has increased 50% since they were open for business. Now that the building is renovated, we are now expecting going from 7 employees in a 50,000 square foot structure to 250 now between office employees and retail tenants. So it's incredible to see what this is, what these renovations do just for small corners within our city. I've witnessed firsthand the quick and dramatic effects. Oh, I'm sorry.
Why don't you say the name of that coffee shop for us?
Harmony Coffee Shop.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I've witnessed firsthand the quick and dramatic effects of restoring old buildings: increased state and local tax revenue, safer neighborhoods, more housing, street and sidewalk beautification, and many new jobs. The best part is that adaptive reuse is the most sustainable form of real estate development. I'm here as an individual. 70% of rental properties in our country are owned by individuals and families who have invested their livelihoods into our communities. But market conditions have left most owners with no ability to restore their properties. So we are left with an oversupply of vacant commercial buildings, and at the same time, we have a severe shortage of housing at all affordability levels. The Cub Credit would immediately and dramatically improve the imbalance, creating a vibrant new mix of housing, commercial spaces, and mixed-use properties from the inventory that we already have within our communities. And owners would not receive the tax credit until renovations are complete, which ensures an immediate return on the state's investment. A 2024 University of Minnesota Department of Economic Development study confirmed a 10-to-1 economic benefit to dollars spent on historic tax credit renovations. But only a small, very small percentage of properties qualify for historic tax credits, as you've heard from others. We need a program that applies to neglected buildings of all types in all areas around the state, and we need to act quickly. The Cub credit is our solution, and I hope you will support its swift approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tepley. I now invite Eric Fowler and Brahman Cohen.
Thank you.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Fowler. If you'd state your name, we welcome your testimony.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Fowler. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the Director of Building Performance with Fresh Energy. Thanks very much, Chair Rest and committee members, for the opportunity this morning. Fresh Energy is a 30-year-old Minnesota-based nonpartisan nonprofit working to shape and drive bold policy solutions to achieve equitable carbon-neutral economies. And we appreciate the opportunity to share our support for SF 768. So in addition to the immediate economic benefits for building owners and tenants, maximizing the use of Minnesota's existing building stock has significant benefits for Minnesota's climate emissions. Preserving and renovating existing buildings is a low-carbon, common-sense approach to avoiding the upfront and substantial embodied carbon emissions that are inherent to concrete, steel, and the superstructure of the building assembly. Now, large building conversions are also an excellent opportunity to improve efficiency and ensure that these buildings are sipping and not guzzling energy at the end of the project. So as the legislation moves forward, Fresh Energy does recommend considering an enhanced tax incentive for building owners that invest in higher efficiency and even lower emission technologies and techniques. Further incentives for efficiency and electrification could represent a major opportunity to further reduce Minnesota's building sector emissions through reutilization projects across the state, while also providing those additional benefits to cities and building users and owners. So we would welcome the opportunity to continue discussions with the bill author and other proponents to support such an amendment. And overall, I appreciate your attention and would encourage support for this bill.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cohen, I may be mispronouncing your name.
That's correct.
If you'd identify yourself for the record, we welcome your testimony.
My name is Brahim Khan.
Okay.
I am the Secretary Treasurer of SEIU Local 26, a property service union representing 8,000 workers who clean, maintain, and secure buildings across the Twin Cities. In March 2024, Local 26 released a report on downtown revitalization in Minneapolis and has since been uplifting workers' voices in conversation about the development of downtown where they are often left out. We are acutely aware of the issue facing our downtown areas because occupancy levels that lead to devaluations of properties hurt our members. Recently, at Ameriprise, we got 15 of our security officers who got laid off and a reduction of our janitorial team. The decline in tax revenue impact the social services many of our members relied on as low-income workers. For these reasons, we are supportive of adaptive reuse of underutilized building, and we appreciate Senator Mohamed's leadership on this important issue. We believe this bill can do more to ensure that redevelopments benefit the broader community, including the worker who helps sustain this building and the residents in need of affordable housing. Our members have fought hard for fair wages, retirement security, and benefits. Without clear expectation, in this bill, they do stand to lose. In past redevelopment efforts, we have seen cases where good jobs were displaced when responsible contractors were not prioritized. Public investments, especially one of these sides, should support stable, good-paying jobs that sustain families and communities. Additionally, housing affordability remains a critical issue. Without requirements or incentive for affordable housing, there is no guarantee that this conversion will provide homes for low-income residents rather than solely market-rate tenants. Our members want to live in downtown, as we found that the biggest barrier to live in downtown is overwhelmingly cost. If public dollars are involved, COB finance projects should serve the public good, and our members deserve a chance to be able to afford to live in them. Finally, we encourage stronger sustainability measures to ensure that public investment create energy efficient, environmentally responsible building that will benefit our cities for generations to come. Our members want to be part of this solution. They take pride in their work and the role they play in keeping our downtown vibrant. We appreciate the work being done on this bill and hope to continue the conversation to ensure redevelopment efforts reflect the need of workers, residents, and the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now invite Josh Usikanto to testify. And then we have one final testifier on online. Welcome to the committee. If you'd identify yourself for the record.
My name is Josh Musicanto. I've worked in the property management industry since 2011. I've worked at both residential sites and at commercial sites. I can definitely say that on average, residential property management jobs offer worse benefits, less transparency, and present more complex crises compared to the commercial sector. I certainly support repurposing underutilized spaces, but we need to make sure the jobs we are creating are as good or better as the many union jobs that are being lost due to the shuttering of office spaces. So what sorts of jobs will residential units create? Residential workers have been raising the alarm for years on issues in the industry. It was less than a year ago that condo workers fought to end restrictive covenants, which restricted job opportunities of many condo workers, including me. When I worked in condos for First Service, my title was desk attendant, and I was told that I was, quote, not security. Today, I am a level 2 security officer working at RSM Plaza, and the situations I encountered working in the residential sector were on average far more severe than what I currently face. Residential workers who are persistently harassed by a resident often feel they have little recourse. Live-in caretakers at First Service managed condos not only lose their jobs, but also their housing if terminated. And these are at-will employees without the protections against unfair firing that I have as a union security guard. When I left First Service and became union, my pay increased by 30% overnight. I finally received training in security and CPR, and for the first time I had quality health insurance that I wasn't afraid to actually use. Compared to the commercial sector, The organizing of residential workers is still in its infancy. I worry that this bill, as written, will provide more opportunities to an industry with no guardrails to continue to perpetuate these problems while taking good jobs with standards and benefits away from hardworking people in our downtowns. As we renovate our buildings, let's also make sure we are revamping the labor standards in the residential industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our final testifier is Mr. John Dukic. He is online. If you would identify yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is John Dukic. I work on policy issues with Mayor Reinert here in Duluth, Minnesota. Mayor sends his regrets that he's not able to join you today. He is away on Navy duty, but asked that I share some comments in his absence. And to begin, I'd just like to thank Senator Mohamed for authoring this legislation, and you, Madam Chair, along with Senator Hauschild and others for your work on it. Like many cities, and we've heard this from Mayor Fry, Duluth has seen an increase in the number of vacant or underutilized buildings throughout our downtown core. And what used to be home to commercial, then professional businesses, given these post-pandemic trends, is likely to be residential. And we, as a city, desperately need that housing to meet our workforce needs, as well as to meet our population goal of 90,000 residents by 2030. Back in 2019, it was estimated that Duluth would need an additional 3,600 units of affordable housing by 2024. And needless to say, we have not only failed to reach that number, but have fallen farther behind in building housing. And this is hampering economic growth in Duluth and northeastern Minnesota. In Duluth, for example, our large employers like Essentia or Aspire St. Luke's, Cirrus, and others cannot grow because they cannot find the workforce, and we cannot build the workforce in Duluth without places for people to live. And furthermore, just within the last couple of months, we've heard from downtown employers that are leaving or considering leaving the downtown area. Currently, we have about a 35% office vacancy rate downtown, and that could be headed to 50% if we don't do something soon. And we view the commercial to residential conversion projects as an important part of helping revitalize our downtown core. But these projects, however, can be expensive and require adding bathrooms or moving plumbing and adding HVAC and other expensive elements to bring an old office building up to a livable standard. So the proposed credit would help offset those construction costs and make it more financially feasible for developers to undertake this type of work. And to be clear, we're really excited about the future of downtown residential in Duluth and view this CUB tax credit as an important tool in our toolbox to help get there. Thank you for your support and the opportunity to testify this morning. And with that, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the final list of our testifiers. Senator Mohamed, if you could make 20-second final statement, that would be very helpful for the rest of our agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate you for giving this a hearing. I think it's one of those, we're in one of those moments where we have to think about what life is going to look like post-pandemic, and this is one of those opportunities where we can think about what our downtowns could look like across our state.
Thank you very much, Senator Mohamed. Senate File 768 as amended is laid over. The next bill on our agenda is Senate File 2615, Senator Jasinski. Welcome to the committee, Senator, and we are pleased for you to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to be back in the tax committee. I'm feeling much better than I was here last time, so thank you for having me.
Very nice to you.
And thanks for having the hearing on 2615. First of all, I want to thank my co-author, Senator Frentz. This is a bipartisan bill. I'll go through the bill, and if after that I have a couple comments. Subdivision 106 identifies electric generation facility and personal property. This is notwithstanding Subdivision 9, Clause A, attached machinery and other personal property that are part of an electric generation facility with more than 40 megawatts and less than 50 megawatts of installed capacity and that meet requirements of the subdivision are exempt from taxation in payment in lieu of taxation. The facility must be designed to utilize natural gas as a primary fuel. It must be owned and operated by a municipal power agency as defined in section 453.52, subdivision 8. The facility must be located within 1,000 feet of an existing natural gas pipeline. The facility must satisfy a resource deficiency identified as an integrated resource plan filed under section 216B-2422. The facility must be located outside the metropolitan areas defined by subsection 473, subdivision 2. The facility must have received by resolution the approval of the governing bodies of the city and the county in which the facility is located for the exemption of personal property provided in the subdivision. And the facility must be constructed the facility must have commenced after January 1st of 2026 and before January 1st of 2028. Property eligible for this exemption does not include electric transmission lines and interconnections or gas pipelines and interconnections appurtenant to the property or the facility. And with that, so what this does allows the Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency in seeking a personal tax exemption for the Steel Energy Station. It's a new 49 megawatt peaking power plant to be built on the west side of Otana. The personal property tax exemption for the natural gas-fired generation equipment is fairly common in Minnesota since 2000. The legislature has granted approximately 20 personal property tax exemptions for generation projects. Granting this exemption will allow this facility to be on level playing field with other similar power plants and will help keep the electric rates for SMMPA's customers competitive with other utilities. While we have not yet seen the revenue analysis, we believe this affects local property taxes only, and there will be no revenue impact on the state. The City of Otana, the Otana City Council and the Steele County Board have both recently passed resolutions support for this exemption. So with that, I could turn it over to my testifier, Madam Chair.
Senator Jasinski, we actually do have a revenue estimate.
Okay.
I apologize if you don't have
I'm
it.
sorry.
I wonder if we could have a page presented to you, and you'll be happy to note that there is no general fund
Thank you, Madam
impact,
Chair.
as you indicated. There will be, because it is a property tax exemption, I mean, because they're still paying property taxes, nevertheless, it is going to have an impact on property tax refunds for homeowners and renters to the, out in fiscal year 2030 of about $50,000, but that is not within our four-year planning period. So just so you're aware of that. Thank you very much, and we will continue with the testimony unless someone has a question for Senator Weber. Thank you. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking at the revenue estimate and then saw the $50,000 amount. It just seems unusual to me that I understand when we take a non-exempt property and make it exempt, we've created a shift.
Yep.
But this is brand-new construction whereby they won't even have paid any real estate tax until 29, the year it takes effect. So to me, that seems not entirely, I don't know what the word is to use, correct, to say it's a shift when it didn't exist in the first place.
Senator Weber, you know, we've been having conversations here and there about static scoring and dynamic scoring. And the tax expenditure budget is, as I continue my reading on it, it's a moment in time. It does not deal with things that are other things that are going on in the world. It doesn't predict anything, or it's just right now, this is what it is with the look back of the 3 years or however much it covers. But the revenue estimates have a bit more flexibility in looking forward to how things will interact. And in fact, we get that all the time. That, well, if you make a change here, it's going to affect the legacy amendment or so on. The tax expenditure doesn't do that. It doesn't look at the various interactions, as far as I understand. So that's kind of why this is here, predicting that there would be property tax refunds in 2030 for this plant that they're assuming will be built by that time. Now, if it doesn't get built, then of course that $50,000 in extra property tax refunds won't come to pass either. So I understand, but there's no number that we have to be worried about now. But I appreciate those who read the revenue estimates very, very much. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh,
Senator
just
Weber.
one other comment. And if the plant wasn't built, that $50,000 would happen anyway, because the taxable base isn't there to spread the costs of the local community over it in the first place.
Other than what the value of that property is at this time.
Yeah.
That they assume that would be at that time if nothing happened to it. Some sort of increase in the value may or may not occur, you know,
Right.
so anyway. So we're having a conversation here, Senator Jasinski.
Madam Chair, I've been listening.
Okay, and we're pleased to welcome your testifier. If you'd state your name for the record.
Yep. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I am Dave Geschwin, Chief Executive Officer for the Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, or SIMPA, as we refer to ourselves. I'm here today to respectfully request your support for a personal property tax exemption for SIMPA's new steel energy station that will be built in Owatonna. A little bit of background on SIMPA. We are a municipal power agency. We provide wholesale power and related energy services to our 17 members. Our members are cities that operate their own electric utilities, including the cities of Owatonna and Waseca, Rochester, Preston and Spring Valley, Lake City, and Grand Marais. Those are among our 17 members. Power agencies like SIMPA allow municipal utilities to achieve economies of scale and offer their citizens electric rates comparable to much larger utilities, coupled with the benefits of local customer service and local reliability. While the Taxes Committee generally doesn't dive into energy policy, I thought I would take just a moment to explain why SIMPA is planning to build a new peaking power plant. SIMPA, along with our plant co-owner, Xcel Energy, will be retiring the large Sherco 3 coal-fired plant in 2030. SIMPA will be replacing that coal-fired generation by making significant future investments in solar and wind generating resources, but the agency also has a regulatory obligation to ensure reliability when renewables are not available. To meet this obligation, we are building a small natural gas combustion turbine power plant in Owatonna. While the state of Minnesota ended collection of personal property taxes on non-utility businesses, utilities continue to be taxed on personal property. However, since 2000, the legislature has granted more than 20 personal property tax exemptions for generation projects like this one. The exemption traditionally does not apply to the entire value of the facility. Only the generating equipment, so land, buildings, the real property, and other equipment not directly related to the generating facility are still added to the local tax base. As an example of this, in 2017, the legislature approved a personal property tax exemption for SIMPA's Owatonna Energy Station, or OES. For OES, which began commercial operation in 2018, SIMPA makes annual property tax payments totaling approximately $150,000 to the city of Owatonna, Steele County, and Owatonna Public Schools. It's reasonable to assume that the proposed Steele Energy Station will provide similar property tax benefits to these three taxing jurisdictions, even with the requested exemption. I should note, as has already been noted, that the Owatonna City Council and the Steele County Board have recently passed resolutions already supporting this requested exemption. The SIMPA members, including Owatonna, generally view having a natural gas power plant in their community as a sought-after asset, primarily due to the resulting local construction benefits, property taxes, job creation, and local electric system reliability. Personal property tax exemption would place this new Steele Energy Station on a level playing field with other similar natural gas-fired power plants in Minnesota and help keep our rates competitive with other utilities. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments for Senator Jasinski or his testifier? Seeing none, thank you very much, Senator. And Senate File 2615 is laid over. Senator Hauschild.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Senator Hauschild brings us Senate File 1197. I think we're going to end the bills with this one today, and we'll take up 2580 and 2581 at some other time. Senator Hauschild, Senate File 1197.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. You all have heard me talk about this issue for quite some time, but I'm pleased to present Senate File 1197. Minnesota has a long history of supporting public education, but we've got a problem when a quarter of our school districts are falling behind on their operating referendums. To be fair, the operating referendums were supposed to be for extras, but we know these dollars are simply going to pay for bills, to cover student services, and to try and pay fair compensation for staff. The districts I'm talking about are at $0. $0 for voter-approved operating levy authority. Now, there's a lot of reasons why that's the case, but I'm startled when I look at the map and I see that most of these $0 districts are in central and northern Minnesota, the same communities where there are a lot of seasonal and recreation property that isn't contributing to those local operating levies. I know that in previous generations, legislators have decided that these properties should pay into a state levy instead, and my bill, I just want to be abundantly clear, does not change that. This bill does not change the law on how cabins are taxed. Instead, my bill is aimed at having the state acknowledge that this property tax wealth is needed to make things fair for students in central and northern Minnesota. That's why I'm proposing this bill, and here's how it works. The bill creates a seasonal recreation tax-based replacement aid aimed at reducing the local tax effort required for voter-approved levies. The bill does not give school boards additional levy authority, as the voters must still be asked to vote yes. The bill is especially impactful for school districts with substantial amounts of seasonal recreational residential property. The bill could reduce the tax effort by as much as 50% in districts where cabin market value represents a substantial portion of the total market value. Again, this bill does not change how cabins are taxed. The legislation does come with some initial costs for the state's general fund of about, let me make sure I'm getting this right, 8.8 approximately million, but this is a very targeted approach, Madam Chair, in my opinion, on how to address the major inequities in our school funding system. As you might be aware, there are other bills on equalization that could cost upwards of 130 million plus. And this bill is a much more targeted approach at getting at the inequities in our funding at a much more modest cost. There are no silver bullets, but this program would sure help folks in my district and other parts of greater Minnesota make sure that our kids are getting adequate educational opportunities regardless of their zip code. And with that, Madam Chair, I do have a couple of testifiers, and I'm happy to talk more about the bill or answer questions.
Thank you, Senator Hauschild. In the in this chart, which school districts are in your, or at least some of them? If you would give us their numbers so we can see the impact on your school district. I've already looked at mine.
Sure, Madam Chair. I unfortunately did not.
You don't know the numbers?
Yeah, I did not explicitly highlight them for myself. I can just go ahead and guess, though. I mean, I can guess certainly the school districts. Lake Superior School District, Cook County Public Schools,
Okay,
Ely
Hermantown?
I'm assuming Hermantown would benefit, but not nearly as much as Ely and Lake Superior and Cook and Grand Rapids.
Okay, I need to, you need to know the number,
Sure.
you know,
Cook County is 166.
166? I just think.
I'm sorry, that's the district number that I'm seeing. Which number are you looking for, Madam Chair, on
I'm
this
looking
list?
for the school districts, the numbers. My school district number is 281. So
You're looking for the school district's
the school
literal number,
district
the
that
number
is-
of the school
yes,
district.
the
Yeah, so
number.
166 is one of them. That's Cook County.
So when we look at this further, we know what we're looking at?
Yep.
Any others?
361 and 362 and 363, 381, 390. I have a lot of school districts, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that gives us at least
Yeah.
some picture, but Senator Hauschild, if after the committee, you would give us all those numbers so we can kind of look at what it means throughout the state and not just in your Senate district, if you understand.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, Madam Chair. Yep.
And the fiscal note, I mean, you can see that just because we're going to be running out of time here, but this is a really important change, that the revenue estimate, quite frankly, is, as things go, is fairly modest. But the fiscal note is not modest at all. And it goes to from 8 million in FY '27 to a biennial total in the planning year to 18 million. So that is, over the 4 years, it's $26 million. And I don't know how you go about reducing that, but it's a bit of a showstopper. I know you understand that. But we're talking today about the actual policy and whether this is a good thing to do as a matter of policy for the state of Minnesota with regard to how the statewide business property tax is distributed. It is a general fund that was originally done specifically to pay for contribution across the state of business property, so that, and in some areas like yours, seasonal rec is considered business property. That's why it was included to start with back in 2001, almost 25 years ago. So we will continue with your testifiers, and this also may be a bill that we come back to for discussion, even if we can't have your testifiers return. Okay? Okay, but let's hear from your testifiers briefly.
Thank you.
Cadence Nguyen.
Hello, my name is Cadence Nguyen, and I am a student at Crosby-Ironton High School in central Minnesota. I am a senior and a school board student representative. Chair Rest, I would like to thank you and the other committee members for allowing me and my classmate to testify regarding Senate File 1197. I would like to also thank Senators Hauschild, Farnsworth, Kupek, and Rasmussen for authoring this bill. I am passionate about Senate File 1197 because of the detrimental budget cuts my district is facing this school year and next. My district is in an $885,000 deficit with 2 failed levy referendums behind us. As a student, it deeply upsets me that the opportunities I have had are actively being taken away from the roughly 1,000 other students in my school district. Our district has done everything possible to make fair cuts for students to keep our school afloat, but each year we do not access more funding, more opportunities are being taken away. The area our school district covers remains a popular area for tourism. One might find themselves up north to shred the red, staying in an overnight rental. This tourism no doubt helps our community thrive. However, according to mncompass.org, in our little pocket of the state, 3,410 of the 8,127 dwellings in our school district are vacant housing units. That's up to 41.9% that are second homes, cabins, or other dwellings that are currently exempt from supporting voter-approved referendum levies. That's 41.9% of properties that are unavailable to families who want to move into and attend our school district. That's 41.9% that if Senate File 1197 is passed, will help alleviate the tax burden of an operating referendum on the remaining 58.1%. One thing I love is extracurricular activities. They help students grow outside of the classroom and have personally helped me discover my love for leadership. However, Monday night I sat on the school board as $100,000 was cut from the general fund for extracurricular activities for next school year. This cut will require all students to pay $150 to be in an activity, a cost which the majority of our students cannot afford. I will graduate this year. My parents will not have to break the news to me that I am not able to participate in all of my extracurricular activities due to the recent cuts and affordability from added fees. Yet, I think about classmates who have multiple younger siblings and younger students in kindergarten or those who have not even started school yet. Imagine being the parents who have to tell their children they can't afford to have them play sports or participate in school activities because of these fees. Approving Senate File 1197 would help not only our school and community, but also schools and communities in Minnesota that are facing referendums. Education funding is an issue in itself, but passing this bill would help to make referendums put into place more affordable for all district members. I implore you to please support Senate File 1197 to reinforce a better future for our students. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today, your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nguyen. Mr. Holmes. Welcome to the committee. If you'd identify yourself for the record.
Chair Rest, my name is Wyatt Holmes. I'm a sophomore at Crosby-Arrington High School in central Minnesota. I would like to thank you and the other committee members today for allowing me to testify regarding Senate File 1197. I would also like to thank the senators who authored this bill. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to testify today regarding Senate File 1197, a crucial piece of legislation that aims to address funding disparities caused by the exemption of seasonal and recreational properties from our local school district taxes. Like many schools in the state, our district is currently facing a budget crisis, leading to difficult decisions that impact our educational programs and opportunities. As a long-standing member of the school community, I have witnessed firsthand the challenges our district is facing. Funding for programs like College in Schools, which provides college credits to students without paying tuition, is at risk. Ranger Made, a course we have in our career and technical education wing, where students learn how to use highly technical machines, create products, and even run a business out of our school, is also at risk of losing support. This is a program designed for students that are more interested in going into the workforce right out of high school. Funding is severely needed for these programs because they play such a vital role of education of students at CI. The potential loss of these programs would be a severe setback for students like myself who rely on them to prepare for our futures. SF 1197 proposes the establishment of a seasonal tax-based replacement aid, ensuring that taxes from seasonal properties contribute to local school funding. This measure seeks to correct a policy change from the early 2000s that redirected cabin property taxes away from local school districts, disproportionately affecting rural areas like ours. By implementing this aid, the financial burden on permanent residents would be alleviated, and essential education programs such as CIS and Ranger Made could be preserved. According to data from mncompass.org, 41.9% of the homes in our district are vacant housing units, including seasonal properties, meaning that many of those are exempt from taxes that support our school. I would ask the senators here today to consider what this would look like in their districts if over 40% of the homes were exempt from taxes going towards their schools. Your districts would likely look incredibly different. Passing Senate File 1197 would expand the funding from voter-approved referendum levies by including thousands of additional homes, reducing the tax burden on residents. This expansion is crucial for securing the necessary funding to maintain and enhance the quality of education in our community. In the past 2 years, our district has faced challenges in passing operating referendums. For example, a referendum held 2 years ago in November 2023 failed by just 35 votes, with 920 in favor, just over 49%, and 955 opposed, just under 51%. This outcome underscores the need for a broader tax base to make such referendums more palatable to the community and ensure sustainable funding for our schools. I urge you to support Senate File 1197. This legislation is essential for ensuring equitable funding for our school district, preserving vital education programs, and securing a sustainable future for our community. Your support will make a lasting positive effect on the education and lives of students like myself. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Our final commenter is a superintendent from Lake Superior School District. We welcome your testimony. If you'd identify yourself and be very brief. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Rest, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate File 1197, a bill that could provide tax relief for year-round residents of Independent School District 381, Lake Superior School District. My name is Gina Clive. I am the new superintendent of Lake Superior School District, a fourth-generation resident of Lake County and proud graduate of Two Harbors High School. Our district has a long-standing tradition of educational excellence in Silver Bay and Two Harbors. We serve a vast geographic area spanning approximately 2,500 square miles, and 82% of that is made up of public land, including a portion of St. Louis County from the shores of Lake Superior to the southern end of Bassett Township, and all of Lake County extending to the Canadian border. Additionally, our region is a beloved destination for many Minnesotans whose fondest memories are tied to their cabins and vacation homes here. However, our district faces a unique challenge due to the high percentage of Class 4 C12 seasonal recreational properties. These properties are excluded from the referendum market value tax base and do not contribute to voter-approved operating referendum. As a result, the financial burden of supporting our schools falls disproportionately on our year-round residents, making it increasingly difficult to pass much-needed operating levies. Between fiscal year 24 and 25, we're facing approximately $700,000 in budget cuts, reductions that are directly impacting staffing, class size, and student opportunities. Our last attempt at passing an operating levy was in 2007, with a request of $600 per pupil. With approximately 1,200 students, that levy would have generated about $720,000. However, 61% of our voters rejected it. Now, 18 years later, Senate File 1197 presents a chance to change that conversation. If we were to maintain that same $600 per pupil request, this legislation proposes 31.4% reduction in our voter-approved operating referendum tax rates through seasonal tax-based replacement aid, accounting for about $226,000 of that $720,000. That reduction would be a game changer, transforming how our voters perceive school funding and making passage of an operating levy far more feasible. By addressing the challenges faced by districts with high seasonal property ownership, this legislation ensures that all students have that access to resources they need to succeed. Putting this decision in the hands of our voters while ensuring that fairness in the tax structure is the right approach. We need this bill and your support to make that happen. If we can pass an operating levy, we can proactively invest in our students, retain our dedicated staff, prevent further budget cuts that would harm educational opportunities. please support Senate File 1197. Help us give our voters a reason to say yes to schools and the future of our students. Thank you, Senator Rest, Senator Hauschild, and committee members for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Senator Hauschild. We will lay this bill over. We're going to come back to it on another occasion for more thorough discussion among the committee members. So at this time, Senate File 1197 is laid over. Next week, we'll be having committee on Tuesday and Thursday, and starting at 9 o'clock. We will not be meeting on Wednesday. Today, however, I want to take this last moment to thank one of our pages who is leaving the committee and going to work as the legislative assistant for Senator Rasmussen, and that is Sydney Tiffany. So I hope you will congratulate her on her new position, and just generally want to thank the great work that's been done for us by our pages, including Sydney, Jillian, and Mitchell, who also work for other committees that meet in this room. There being no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.